Hey class, it's this Professor Rourke. Had some questions about numbers 8 and 9 on homework 1.3, and these can be challenging and a little tricky, but once you kind of get the hang of it, I think you'll see it's not terrible. So 1.3 is all about sampling and in particular how to have pick random numbers. So there is a way to get a random number from our graphing calculator when you seed it with a number to start out with. But this is kind of like an old school way that we could pick random numbers using a row of random number table. So I'm gonna walk through number 8, and then also I'll look at number 9 to give you some practice, and then you can keep me posted. We can always practice this again in class. So this is number 8. It says, use the rows of numbers shown below to generate 12 random numbers between 0, 1, and 99. Okay, so they give us one row. Sometimes they'll give you multiple rows and they tell you which row to look at. Okay, so first of all, they are telling us it's really between 1 and 99. But you notice how they wrote 0, 1? That's because what we're going to do is we're going to look at numbers, two numbers at each time. Okay, and so 1 would really look like 0, 1, and then all the way up to 99 would be 99. Okay. So let's just try this out. So the first numbers we're going to look at, I'll see if I can go ahead and put a little line to mark where we're going to be starting at. I'm also going to see if I can zoom in just to make this a little bit easier. Bigger. Okay, so the first numbers we're going to look at are the first two numbers, which are 0, 5. Okay, and then you want to ask yourself, is this number inside the interval that I'm looking for? Let me say, yes, it is. And also make sure that you haven't used it before. When this is the first number we've had, so we don't have to do that. So our first number is going to be 5. Okay, so we're done with those first two numbers. Then we look at the next two numbers. The next two numbers are 0, 3, which is 3. Okay, and we haven't used that before, and that is in our interval. So we're just going to put 3. Our next two numbers, though, are kind of split between a space, and that's sort of how they usually are going to look. They're going to be typically 5 numbers, space, 5 numbers, space, 5 numbers, space. Okay, so this is just kind of over the gap here. The two numbers, even though there's a space between them, would make 45. Okay, and that is in our interval, so that's good. And so our next number is 45. And then we keep doing this, looking at two numbers at a time. The next number we look at is 0, 1. So that's essentially, you can write 0, 1, or you can just write 1. So that's good. The next one that we're looking at, if you look at the next two numbers, would be 27. And we keep doing this. The only thing we look out for is if any numbers repeat, then we don't want to use those again, because we don't want to pretty much sample the same person or sample whatever it is that we're sampling. Okay, 97. The next one, you don't have to keep writing these lines if you don't want to, but also if it helps, you can copy this on a sheet of paper. If you like to kind of draw them on here, you could draw them to kind of mark where you're at. You can do that. The next one across would be 13. I'm going to start trying to do this now without necessarily writing it. The next one here would be 38. The next one after 38 would be 39. The next one after that would be 82. And then the last one would be 66. Okay, so that's how we kind of look. And again, that was between 1 and 99, and it was just one row. This next one that I'm going to take a look at with you looks very similar, but also different. Okay, so this time it says a class has 50 students. So now we only want to use the numbers between 1 and 50. So if you think back to number 8, the ones that we had that were greater than 50, you just don't use them. You cross them out, you skip to the next one, the next 2-digit number. Okay, so it says use the first row of digits in the random number table. Okay, so we're gonna look at the first row. Be careful, because sometimes they might say something different. They could say use the third row or something along those lines. This is the first row. Okay, versus in theory, they could have maybe even have said like use the first column, in which case you would look at it the numbers this way. But usually in our textbook, they say rows. Okay, so it says use the first row of digits in the random number table below to select a simple random sample of 3 students. If the students are numbered 1 to 50, what are the numbers of the 3 students selected? Okay, so let's give this a try. Looking at the first 2 numbers here would be 77. Okay, so that is not between 1 and 50. That's pretty much unhelpful. Just cross it out. Then we look at the next 2 digits. 95, also unhelpful, not in our range. The next number, we got to kind of bridge this large gap here. So that can sometimes be a little tricky just to kind of have our brains think about those 2 numbers together would be 24. Okay, and that is inside the range between 1 to 50. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that down, 24. Next 2 numbers, 54, no, that's not helpful. Next 2 numbers, 77, no. Next 2 numbers, 86, no. Next 2 numbers, 18, okay, yes, that one would work. And then the next 2 numbers here would be 31. And we can stop there because it said this time it was only 3 numbers that we had to worry about. So that's all right, 24, 18, 31. So those are the 3 numbers, like if we had in theory students numbered 1 through 50 and we used a random number generator to select who was going to be sampled, that's how we would do that using a table. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Please try those problems out yourself and we can practice them again. I think some of the helpful things to remember are to look at 2 numbers all the time. So chunk 2 numbers together. And if they don't use them, you cross them both out and then you look at the next 2 numbers. You also have to look across the gap for some of them. So for instance, there's 5 numbers here. We are looking at groups of 2. So the 2 and the 4 have to be put together to make 24 across that space there. Okay, thank you so much again for sending me questions. Remember this button right down here, the Ask My Instructor, is a great one to look at. You can also click View an Example, although I feel like sometimes for things like this, it does walk you through it, but yeah, I feel like it's a little easier when someone explains it to you versus just kind of looking up and down at the table there. But those are all good things. You can also do Help Me Solve This, which is a good one. It just kind of walks you through and prompts you along the way. And then you'll notice they will have you try another one after you do Help Me Solve This. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. And I will talk to you soon. Keep me posted.